fall is just a great time to plant almost anything, whether it be trees, shrubs, or perennials. And the reason is because the ground is still warm while the air temperatures have started to cool down. And these conditions are very conducive to rapid root growth and development and just overall establishment of the plants. If you're in the market to buy a deciduous tree with nice fall color, this is the time of the year to start going to the nurseries as these leaves start to exhibit that color. That way you can pick out the tree that you want with the color that you want. Well, we have a few cool season bedding plants that we can put in our garden or in containers for some color in our gardens this time of the year. Some good examples are ornamental cabbage and ornamental kale. You can see that this large ornamental cabbage is really showing some nice color. And this one's actually in a 1 gallon size pot. So that will make an instant impact in your garden. But here are just some of the ornamental kales we have available. Snapdragons are a nice cool season annual for the garden. Dusty Miller can be planted. Dianthus is also a good choice. And then we have some asters that we can plant in our garden this time of the year. And of course, chrysanthemums are one of the traditional fall bedding plants. And right over here we have pansies. And out of all of these plants, the pansies are probably going to give you the most color. And that is because you can plant them now, they'll grow and flower quite a bit in the fall. They'll grow through the winter and bloom this time of the year. And then in the spring, they'll reward you with just a big flush of growth and flowers. In all my years of gardening, I've planted pansies in both spring and fall. And the ones planted in the fall always seem to look the best in the spring. Now over the winter, you may go out in your yard and your pansies look like they've frozen and died. But don't worry, because most of the time they will come back. The leaves will sprout back from the base and we'll get some more growth and more flowering. Now there are a few things you can do to help protect your pansies over the winter, and one is to make sure that if we have some really cold weather that the plants are well watered. Don't let them freeze when they're dry. And also mulch your pansy plantings. That will help regulate that freezing and thawing of the soil and just protect the roots and bases of the plants better. If you want, on those really cold nights, you could use something like this remay or some other thin, lightweight cloth and just go out at night and put these over your beds to help protect the plants. But you wouldn't want to do that if we have a forecast for ice or snow, because that will weight this down and cause some problems. The chrysanthemums, of course, are a traditional fall bedding plant. We see a lot of people decorating their porches and patios with chrysanthemums and pumpkins and bales of hay and things like that. And it looks just terrific. The chrysanthemums are perennial plants, so if you plant these, you can enjoy these for several years. Just be sure and cut them back in the middle of the summer so they'll stay smaller and you'll have more flowers. The asters are also perennial, but it's been my experience that a lot of the asters that are available this time of the year don't really establish themselves well in the garden. They have a lot of disease problems, so if you get a few years of growth out of them, count yourself lucky. But with these bright colors, they're well worth planting for a fall display. The snapdragons, a lot of people may not think about planting snapdragons for color in the fall, but snapdragons bloom very well when the temperatures cool down. You may have noticed in your garden some of the snapdragons you planted back in the springtime have started to bloom and look better now that the temperatures have cooled off. Right back here we have the Dianthus, and again, it's a perennial. And we plant these in our garden for nice fall color, and we're sure to get a few extra years of growth out of the Dianthus. The Dusty Miller I've had over winter for several years. It's fairly hardy in most of Oklahoma, and again provides a nice silvery color to our fall planting. Now the ornamental cabbage and kale has a hardiness down to about 15 degrees or 10 degrees, and if it gets about that cold, these can freeze and die. But a good idea, or a good way to utilize your ornamental cabbage and kale, is to plant them in a container, kind of like we've got right here. And if you do that, you can take this container and put it on your patio or your porch, And then on those nights when you're watching the weather and we're going to have a really cold snap, you can come out, take your container, and move it into the garage. What we're going to do with this container is plant it, keep it on the deck of our barn here, and if we see that we're going to have some really cold weather, we'll bring it inside the barn where we keep the temperature about 50 degrees. I'm just going to put these in this container here. We've got a nice ornamental grass here. This is a miscanthus called Morning Light, and you can see it's got a little bit of variegation in the leaves. This will look good for a while, and even after it gets really cold and we get that straw color, it'll hold its form through the winter. And then we've got a hardy English ivy planted here to trail out of this pot. So we've got a nice grouping of foliage plants for this container. Well, whether you plant these in your beds or put them in a portable container, you're sure to enjoy some of these cool season bedding plants.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. You can also find more recent videos on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.